One interesting fact about the current pandemic that we are in is that the death and infection rate in the East has been substantially less than that in the West. Considering where the infection started, this appears to be counterintuitive. January 3, China reports a total of 44 cases of a mysterious disease, and shortly after identifies it as the novel coronavirus. The first death is reported on January 9th. January 13th, the first case is reported in Thailand. January 16th, Japan reports a case. January 20th, South Korea. January 24th, US and Nepal. And by January 25th, Australia, Malaysia, France, Canada, all confirmed cases. And now, even though the virus had a head start in East Asia, there are more deaths and overcrowded hospitals in Western countries. With the exception of China, there were no Asian countries with peak death totals that ever even came close to the US, Italy, or Spain. So, how did this happen, and why? At the moment, there is no clear answer, but there are probably a number of factors at work here. The number one factor has to be that Eastern countries have had recent experience with the spread of dangerous viruses. At the beginning of the outbreak, experts predicted Taiwan would have the highest number of cases outside of mainland China. To date, Taiwan has kept the number of confirmed cases under 400, whereas China is over 40,000. Taiwan, same as South Korea and Singapore, was prepared for this epidemic due to its recent experiences with SARS and MERS. As soon as the first case was detected in Singapore, containment measures were implemented, while South Korea started testing for and locating new cases immediately. Plans and containment measures had been laid out in advance as soon as there were any news about there being a new virus coming from Wuhan. In the West, for the first month, all we got were confusing messages from our leaders who were scrambling to figure out whether or not this outbreak was really a big deal or not. And we all know how that turned out. The seriousness of the situation only dawned when people in Italy started dying in droves. Reason number 2? Underreporting and undertesting. None of the numbers that we have are correct. No one knows the real mortality rate, and we definitely don't know how many people are carrying the virus, especially in cases like India. The official numbers reported there are very low, most certainly too low to be true. And most expert opinion agrees that India is close to a massive medical emergency, as the true extent of the outbreak will make itself known in the future. Even Japan is guilty of this, as it has a remarkably low testing and COVID mortality reporting rate. Third, a kiss on the cheek or a handshake is more than enough for transmission. It's not surprising that countries most affected at the moment are the ones that are very physically affectionate, namely Italy, Spain, and France. Also, consider the aversion of Western countries to wearing face masks. Before the outbreak, it just wasn't socially acceptable to wear a mask in public. Compare that to Japan, where 53% of people wear face masks regularly, that is, without an outbreak. I'm sure the pharmacies there have had no shortage of masks, as it's a very basic thing most people have at home just in case. While good hygiene is far from universal in Japan, Japanese people also rarely shake hands, hug, or kiss when greeting. This most definitely has contributed to a more linear growth in case numbers. Also consider how society is a lot more individualistic in the West. We are less likely to follow such orders as stay at home, keep away from your friends, and we are far more likely to go out there and protest and not believe what we are told. In Asia, there's a lot more respect for authority, social stability, conformity. People are much more willing to stay at home for the good of the society as a whole. Better use of technology. In Vietnam, for example, you can use an app to report your symptoms or report the symptoms of others who you suspect are sick. And if you are nearing an area with high infection rate, the app would tell you with location-based emergency messages that you are in an area where infections are likely. Also, in South Korea, the government was communicating with its citizens, telling them what they should be doing during the outbreak. I live in Spain, and since I don't have a local TV, and don't follow the news, I had no idea what was allowed or not allowed during the lockdown, for example. So I decided to go for a jog with my dog, as I usually do. But as soon as I started running, a police car drove up to me and told me to stop. And I may yet get a fine for doing this. This was unfair, as I had no clear understanding of what was allowed or not. I definitely wish that I had received a text message telling me that I could not go outside for a run. Number 5. It is still unclear why, but the initial major hotspots of the virus were in cooler climates, while countries with higher humidity such as Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand showed significantly lower growth rate. This relationship could even be seen in the US, where a state like Oregon reported far more cases than California. In general, the flu virus and other respiratory viruses that cause colds tend to survive best in low humidity conditions, while when exposed to humidity above 70%, it cannot survive for as long. This of course is just pure speculation at this point, but it's probably a part of the picture.
Hey, and thanks for watching. So, this is obviously quite a complicated issue, and I'm not trying to simplify it or say that I have the right answer. I don't know. I think there's just a bunch of factors here, and I'm just trying to list them out. I mean, for different countries, it will probably be a different list of factors that contributed to them doing better during this crisis, but I thought it was still interesting to find out what the factors probably are. Probably don't have the whole picture, there's probably more things, and if you got any ideas about what else is contributing to this discrepancy, just list it down in the comments below. Also, I'm not trying to say that anyone's culture is better than another culture. Clearly, I'm just pointing out that during the time of this pandemic, having a culture that is less intimate and less physical with each other has contributed to there being less spread. Personally, I think living in Spain is great. I love the fact that people touch each other and kiss each other a lot more. I think people should do that more, to be honest. Yeah, so also this is my first video. You watched it. Wow. Well done to you. Thank you. You're not supposed to see my first video.